Welcome to the epic tale of adventure, gods, monsters, and one man's relentless journey home. This is Homer's Odyssey, one of the greatest stories ever told. But what makes it so important? Stay with us to find out! The Odyssey is an epic poem, meaning it's a long, grand tale of heroes, gods, and legendary events. Think of it as the ancient world's blockbuster movie, except it was told aloud, not written down. It was composed over 2,500 years ago, in the 8th century before the Common Era. That's older than Rome, older than the pyramids of Giza. Wait, no, not quite, but still really old. And yet, this ancient story still influences books, movies, and even video games today. Ever heard of a road trip movie? Or a hero struggling to get home? That's the Odyssey in disguise. So who created this masterpiece? A mysterious poet named Homer, who also wrote the Iliad, the story of the Trojan War. But here's the catch. We're not even sure if he really existed. The Odyssey survived through oral tradition, meaning it was memorized and recited by poets before ever being written down. Imagine remembering thousands of lines of poetry without a single piece of paper. Even today, the Odyssey is more than just an old story. It's about adventure, resilience, and the struggle to find our way home. And let's be honest, who hasn't felt lost at some point? Now that you know why the Odyssey matters, it's time to dive into the real action. Join us as we embark on Odysseus's incredible journey, starting with the aftermath of the Trojan War. Now that we've set sail on Odysseus's journey, let's take a quick detour to meet the man behind the legend. Or, well, maybe meet him. Welcome to the mystery of Homer. Who was he? Did he even exist? And how did his words survive for so many centuries? Homer is credited as the author of both the Iliad and the Odyssey, but here's the twist. No one knows for sure if he was a real person or just a name for a tradition of storytellers. Some say he was a blind poet from Ionia, while others think Homer was a whole team of writers. You see, back in the day, there were no books, just memory and voice. Epic tales were passed down orally from bard to bard, like an ancient game of telephone. This means the Odyssey evolved over time before it was ever written down. Historians believe the Odyssey was first written down sometime between the 8th and 7th centuries BCE. That's over 2,700 years ago, and yet, we're still talking about it today. Pretty impressive, right? But here's the thing, the Odyssey isn't alone. It's often seen as a sequel to the Iliad, Homer's epic about the Trojan War. While the Iliad is about wrath and war, the Odyssey is about survival and coming home. Two halves of a legendary whole. So, whether Homer was a single genius or a collective effort, his work shapes storytelling forever. And with that, our history lesson is over. Time to get back to the adventure. Next up, the journey begins as Odysseus leaves Troy. Now that we know a bit about Homer, let's dive into one of the greatest conflicts in mythology, the Trojan War. It's where Odysseus first made his name, and it's the reason he's about to embark on his epic journey home. So, what started this legendary war? According to myth, it all began with a golden apple, labeled for the fairest, when three goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, claimed it. They asked Paris, a Trojan prince, to decide who was the most beautiful. Aphrodite won by promising Paris the love of the most beautiful mortal woman, Helen of Sparta. The catch? She was already married to King Menelaus. Paris whisked her away to Troy, and just like that, boom, war erupted. The Greeks, led by King Agamemnon, launched a massive invasion to bring Helen back. Among them, Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca. Unlike the others, he wasn't eager for war. But he had a part to play. For 10 long years, the Greeks besieged Troy, battling its legendary heroes, like Hector, Troy's noble prince. But brute force alone wasn't enough to take the city. Enter Odysseus and his famous trick, the Trojan horse. The Greeks pretended to retreat, leaving behind a massive wooden horse as an offering. The Trojans, thinking they had won, rolled it into the city. Bad move. Greek soldiers were hiding inside. That night, they poured out, opened the gates, and let the entire Greek army inside. Troy was doomed. Troy burned. The city fell. Its people were slaughtered or enslaved. and the Greeks emerged victorious. But the war had cost them dearly, and for Odysseus, the real struggle was only just beginning. With Troy in ruins, the Greek kings packed up and sailed home. For some, the journey was quick. But for Odysseus, well, let's just say the gods weren't done with him yet. His real adventure was about to begin. With Troy in ruins, Odysseus and his men finally set sail for home. But fate, as always, had other plans. This was not going to be a simple journey. Far from it. The gods were watching. Some favored Odysseus, but others, not so much. Poseidon, lord of the sea, had a particularly large grudge against him. Odysseus and his men faced trouble right away. The winds turned against them, and their ships were scattered. This was not going to be a smooth ride home. After days of struggle, they reached the land of the Cicones. At first, it seemed like a good place to rest, but things went downhill fast. Odysseus and his men attacked, plundering supplies. But instead of a quick victory, they got an ugly surprise. The Cicones fought back, hard. Odysseus managed to retreat, but it cost him. Several of his men were lost, and the journey had barely begun. This was just the beginning. The journey home would be long, unpredictable, and full of dangers, and soon they would sail into even stranger lands. As Odysseus and his men sailed onward, they came upon a mysterious land. They were weary, hungry, and longing for rest. But what seemed like a peaceful stop would soon become a dangerous test of their will to return home. This was the land of the Lotus Eaters, a gentle, dreamlike place where the air was sweet and the people were strangely peaceful. But there was a hidden danger here. Not one of swords or monsters, but of forgetting. Curious, a few of Odysseus's men ventured deeper into the island. The Lotus Eaters welcomed them with open arms and offered them their sacred food, the lotus flower. It was delicious, soothing, and dangerous. The moment they ate, they forgot everything. Forgotten was their homeland, their families, their mission. All they wanted was to stay here forever, wrapped in the sweet oblivion of the lotus. When Odysseus found them, they refused to leave. They begged to stay, to abandon the struggle of the sea and the hardships of the journey home. But Odysseus was not about to lose his men to a flower. With no other choice, Odysseus dragged them back to the ship by force. He tied them down to the benches and ordered his crew to set sail immediately. The island of the Lotus Eaters faded behind them, along with its dangerous, empty bliss. The danger was not a beast or a storm, but something far more insidious, the temptation to forget. But Odysseus had no room for forgetfulness. His journey home was far from over, and greater dangers awaited just beyond the horizon. Odysseus and his men had escaped the Lotus Eaters, but their journey home was far from over. Ahead lay an island unlike any other, a land of giants, ruled by a terrifying one-eyed monster. This is the tale of Polyphemus the Cyclops, one of the most dangerous encounters of Odysseus's long voyage. After days at sea, Odysseus and his crew spotted an island. It looked lush and inviting, with goats grazing on the hills, but something felt off. Smoke curled from a distant cave, and no signs of human life could be seen. Curious and ever bold, Odysseus decided to explore. He took a small group of men and ventured toward the cave. Inside, they found something incredible. Massive shelves lined with cheese, and jugs of milk the size of barrels. The men wanted to grab supplies and leave, but Odysseus, ever the adventurer, insisted they stay and meet the cave's owner. That turned out to be a mistake. A massive shadow loomed at the entrance. The Cyclops had returned. Polyphemus, a towering, monstrous Cyclops, was not pleased to find intruders in his home. He blocked the cave entrance with a giant boulder, trapping Odysseus and his men inside. Then, to their horror, he grabbed 2 sailors and ate them whole. Trapped and desperate, Odysseus hatched a plan. He offered Polyphemus a gift, strong wine, sweeter than anything the Cyclops had ever tasted. The giant drank greedily, and soon his single eye drooped with drunken drowsiness. As Polyphemus drifted into a drunken slumber, Odysseus and his men seized their chance. They took a sharpened wooden stake, heated it in the fire, and, together, they drove it into the Cyclops' single eye. Blinded and furious, Polyphemus howled for help, but the other Cyclopes ignored his cries. "No one is hurting me," he bellowed. Just as Odysseus had planned, since he had tricked the giant into believing his name was nobody. With the entrance still blocked, Odysseus had one more trick up his sleeve. At dawn, he and his men clung beneath Polyphemus's giant sheep as they were led out to graze. The blind Cyclops, feeling only their woolly backs, never noticed the escaping Greeks. As soon as they reached the shore, Odysseus couldn't resist one final jab. He shouted his real name back at the furious Cyclops. That was a mistake. Polyphemus called upon his father, Poseidon, god of the sea, to curse Odysseus's journey home. And so, Odysseus and his men escaped, but at a terrible cost. Poseidon's wrath would follow him for the rest of his journey. The road home had just become even longer and more treacherous. Odysseus and his men had barely escaped the wrath of the Cyclops, but their journey home was far from over. Now, fate had led them to a mysterious island, where the very winds of the world were waiting in the hands of one powerful ruler. This is the story of Aeolus and the Bag of Winds. Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, welcomed Odysseus as an honored guest. Moved by his struggles, he decided to help. He gave Odysseus a special gift: an oxhide bag containing every wind except the one that would guide them safely home. With this powerful gift, Odysseus set sail once more. For 9 long days, he clutched the bag tightly, steering his crew ever closer to Ithaca. At last, the familiar shores were in sight. Home was within reach. But just as Ithaca was within reach, disaster struck. Curiosity got the better of Odysseus's crew. While he slept, they whispered among themselves, wondering what treasure he was hiding. Unable to resist, they untied the bag. The moment the bag was opened, chaos erupted. A monstrous storm burst forth, unleashing violent winds that hurled the ship backward across the sea. The men screamed as the winds howled like wild beasts. Blown far away from home, they found themselves back at Aeolus's island. Desperate, Odysseus begged for help once more. But this time, Aeolus had no mercy. "The gods are against you," he said. "I will not interfere again." And so, with no more divine help, Odysseus and his crew were left to the mercy of the open sea once more. Their near success had turned to bitter failure, all because of one foolish mistake. This chapter of Odysseus's journey is a reminder that even the greatest heroes can be undone by the smallest of errors. But this was just another trial on his long road home. What dangers awaited him next? The adventure was far from over. Odysseus and his men had faced many dangers, but the worst was yet to come. This time, it wouldn't be trickery or the gods that threatened them. It would be sheer, brute force. Welcome to the land of the Laestrygonians, where survival was not guaranteed. Odysseus sent a few of his men to explore the land, hoping to find food and fresh water. Instead, they found something much, much worse. The Laestrygonians were no ordinary people. They were towering giants with an appetite for human flesh, and they had just found their next meal. Before Odysseus and his men could react, the giants launched their attack. They hurled massive boulders at the ships, smashing them to splinters in the water. One by one, the ships were destroyed, their crews lost to the sea or devoured by the giants. Only one ship remained, Odysseus's own. Once again, Odysseus had lost nearly everything. His fleet was gone, his men slaughtered, and yet he survived. The journey home would only get lonelier from here. And so, the few remaining survivors set sail once more, shaken but determined. They had escaped the giants, but their trials were far from over. What awaited them next? Only the gods knew. The journey had been brutal. The few survivors, weary and heartbroken, sailed on. But their next stop would be unlike anything they had faced before. A land of enchantment, deception, and a powerful sorceress. Welcome to Circe's island. This was Aea, home of Circe, the powerful sorceress. The men, desperate for food and shelter, ventured into her palace and walked straight into a trap. One by one, the men drank Circe's enchanted wine. Laughter turned to gasps as their bodies twisted and shrank. Their arms became hooves, their faces elongated into snouts. In moments, they were no longer men, but pigs. Odysseus, waiting by the shore, grew suspicious when his men did not return. But before he could act, a new figure appeared. Hermes, messenger of the gods. Hermes warned Odysseus about Circe's magic and handed him a small, white flower, the legendary moly. "Eat this, and her spells will have no power over you," he advised. Armed with divine protection, Odysseus stormed into Circe's palace. She offered him the same poisoned drink, but this time nothing happened. Shocked, she raised her wand, only to find Odysseus already drawing his sword. Impressed by his resistance, Circe yielded. She promised no more tricks, and true to her word, restored Odysseus's men to their human forms. With the danger over, Circe did not drive them away. Instead, she welcomed Odysseus and his crew, offering them food, rest, and unexpected advice. Before he could continue his journey, Circe told Odysseus something chilling. If he wanted to return home, he first had to visit the underworld and speak with the dead. And so, Odysseus and his men prepared for yet another impossible trial. Their next stop? The land of the dead. But what awaited them there was more terrifying than anything they had faced before. Odysseus had faced monsters, tempests, and enchantresses, but now he was about to confront something far more chilling, the land of the dead. To learn his fate, he had to descend into the underworld, a place no living man was meant to see. Guided by Circe's instructions, Odysseus sailed to the edge of the world, where the river of the dead flowed into the ocean. There he dug a pit, poured offerings of honey, wine, and animal blood, and called out to the spirits of the underworld. At first, the spirits came in droves, shapeless, whispering, desperate for a taste of blood to regain their voices. But one figure stepped forward, clear and commanding. Tiresias, the blind prophet. Tiresias delivered a dire warning. Odysseus would return home, but not without suffering. He must resist temptation, especially on the island of the Sunday god. Disobedience would bring disaster upon his men. But Tiresias wasn't the only ghost Odysseus met. Many fallen comrades appeared, each with their own tragic story. Among them was his old friend Elpenor, who had died on Circe's island, begging for a proper burial. And then a heartbreaking sight, his own mother Anticlea. Odysseus reached for her, but she slipped through his grasp like smoke. She told him of Ithaca, of Penelope's patience, and of the father he had left behind. Shaken but wiser, Odysseus listened to the dead until the spirits overwhelmed him. Fearing he might never leave, he fled back to his ship, the voices of the underworld echoing in his ears. Back on his ship, Odysseus sailed away from the land of the dead, carrying the weight of the prophecies. The journey ahead would not be easy, but now he knew what lay in wait. The dead had spoken, and the message was clear. Danger, loss, and trials still awaited him. But with their warnings, Odysseus had one advantage. He was prepared. The voyage home continued, but new perils were just beyond the horizon. And so, Odysseus and his crew sailed onward, the salty breeze filling their sails. But trouble was never far behind. As they ventured deeper into unknown waters, they were about to face one of the most dangerous challenges yet, the sirens. This was no ordinary threat. It was a trial of willpower and wit. Let's find out how Odysseus overcame their deadly song. The sirens were legendary creatures known for their irresistible voices. Their song promised knowledge and pleasure beyond imagination, but those who listened were doomed to shipwreck on the jagged rocks of their island. But Odysseus was ready. He had been warned about the sirens and devised a clever plan to outsmart them. He ordered his crew to fill their ears with beeswax, blocking out the enchanting song entirely. However, Odysseus, curious to hear the sirens' song without falling into their trap, had himself tied to the mast. He instructed his men to ignore his pleas no matter how desperately he begged to be set free. As the ship sailed past the sirens' island, their haunting melody filled the air. Odysseus strained against the ropes, overcome with longing, but his loyal crew held their course, deaf to the deadly music. At last, the siren song faded, and the ship sailed safely beyond the danger. Odysseus was released from the mast, exhausted but triumphant. He had faced temptation and lived to tell the tale. A rare feat indeed. And so, The crew had overcome yet another peril. The sirens were behind them, but many dangers still lay ahead. This was just one step closer to Ithaca. Stay with us because things are about to get even more intense. We've overcome the sirens, but hold on tight. This journey is about to get even more treacherous. Our next trial will take us through a narrow strait where two terrifying dangers await, Scylla and Charybdis. Odysseus must make an impossible choice. Brace yourselves for the most intense chapter yet. On one side of the strait lurks Scylla, a six-headed monster with each head ready to snatch and devour unsuspecting sailors. On the other side is Charybdis, a massive whirlpool that threatens to swallow the entire ship. Odysseus knows there is no perfect choice. If he tries to avoid Scylla, the ship will be sucked into Charybdis. If he steers away from Charybdis, Scylla will attack. Odysseus chooses to face Scylla, hoping to minimize the loss. As they pass by Scylla, the monster strikes. 6 crew members are snatched up in an instant, their cries lost in the roar of the sea. The rest of the crew watches helplessly as their comrades are taken. It's a heartbreaking loss, but Odysseus presses on. There is no time to mourn. Charybdis looms too close for comfort. He must navigate carefully to avoid the whirlpool. At last, they clear the strait, battered but alive. Scylla and Charybdis are behind them. They've lost good men, but Odysseus's quick thinking has saved the rest. For now, they are safe. But the journey is far from over. We now enter a pivotal chapter of Odysseus's journey, the island of the Sunday. Here, the stakes couldn't be higher. Odysseus and his crew will face a dire choice: obey the gods or face their wrath. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for most of them. Before landing, Odysseus warns his men. No matter how hungry you are, do not touch the cattle of the Sunday god Helios. Disobeying him will bring disaster. The crew promises to obey, at least for now. Days pass, and supplies run dangerously low. Hunger gnaws at the crew. Despite Odysseus's warnings, desperation takes hold. One night, while Odysseus sleeps, they make a fateful decision: slaughter the cattle of Helios. Morning comes, and the ominous signs are immediate. The cattle's hides begin to crawl, and the meat on the spits bellows like living beasts. It's clear that divine punishment is on its way. Zeus's fury is swift and merciless. A violent storm strikes the sea, lightning splits the sky, and massive waves crash against Odysseus's ship. There's no escape from the wrath of the gods. One by one, the men are lost to the sea. The ship is torn apart by the storm's fury. Odysseus clings to a piece of the wreckage, the sole survivor of Zeus's punishment. And so, Odysseus is once again left to the mercy of the sea. His crew is gone, and the journey seems more hopeless than ever. But fate is not done with him yet. What lies ahead will test him in new ways. Our story takes a new turn. Odysseus, battered and broken, washes ashore on a mysterious island called Ogygia. Little does he know that here, time will slip away in a strange blend of paradise and captivity. This is the realm of Calypso, a beautiful but lonely nymph who quickly takes a liking to Odysseus. She tends to his wounds and offers him refuge, but there's more to her hospitality than meets the eye. As Odysseus recovers, Calypso makes him an extraordinary offer. She promises him immortality if he stays with her forever. A tempting offer: immortality, eternal youth, and a life of ease. But there's a catch. He must give up his dream of returning home. Odysseus stays on Ogygia for years. 7 long years. Though the island is a paradise, his heart yearns for Ithaca, for his home, his wife, and his son. Time seems to stand still, but the ache of longing only grows stronger. Finally, the gods take notice. Athena, Odysseus's ever-loyal protector, pleads with Zeus to intervene. Even a hero cannot remain lost forever. Zeus orders Hermes, the messenger of the gods, to deliver a decree to Calypso. She must release Odysseus. No more delays, no more tricks. His journey must continue. Reluctantly, Calypso agrees. She helps Odysseus build a raft and gathers supplies for his voyage. Though she loves him, she knows she cannot hold him back any longer. And so, after 7 long years, Odysseus sets sail once again. The open sea stretches before him, his journey far from over. but his will unbroken. This chapter of Odysseus's journey may be over, but it serves as a powerful reminder. Even the greatest temptations cannot stand in the way of true purpose. But what challenges lie ahead on the endless sea? Stay with us as the adventure continues. As the stormy seas finally release their grip on Odysseus, he washes ashore on the unfamiliar yet tranquil land of Phaeacia. Exhausted and alone, he lies unconscious on the beach. His fate now in the hands of strangers. A new chapter of his adventure begins here, one filled with hope and unexpected kindness. Odysseus's luck changes when Nausicaa, the daughter of King Alcinous, discovers him while doing laundry by the river. Showing compassion and courage, she offers him food and clothing and guides him to the royal palace. In the palace of King Alcinous, Odysseus receives the hospitality he has long yearned for. Seated at a grand feast, he is treated as an honored guest, though his identity remains a mystery for now. After some time, Odysseus reveals his identity and begins to recount the incredible tale of his journey since departing Troy. His stories captivate the Phaeacians, who listen in awe to the trials and triumphs of his long voyage. Moved by Odysseus's tale, King Alcinous promises to help him return home. The Phaeacians provide him with a sturdy ship, supplies, and a crew to ensure a safe passage back to Ithaca. For the first time in years, Odysseus feels that home is truly within reach. And so, Odysseus sets sail once more, his heart filled with hope. The hospitality of the Phaeacians has given him the strength and means to finally return to Ithaca. This chapter of his journey has shown that even in the darkest moments, kindness and generosity can light the way home. We've finally arrived at a new chapter of Odysseus's journey, his long-awaited return to Ithaca. But it's not the triumphant homecoming you might expect. Odysseus arrives in secret, cautious and calculating. Why the secrecy? To reclaim his throne, he must first outwit the suitors who have taken over his home. After years away, Ithaca feels almost unfamiliar. Odysseus needs allies, and his first stop is the humble home of Eumaeus, the loyal swineherd. Eumaeus doesn't recognize his master in disguise, but he offers him food and shelter with the warm hospitality of an old friend. Meanwhile, Odysseus's son, Telemachus, has just returned from his own journey. The gods have guided him back to Ithaca at exactly the right time. With Eumaeus's help, father and son are finally reunited. It's a deeply emotional moment. They've waited 20 years for this. Once the joy of their reunion settles, it's time to plan. Odysseus reveals his true identity and shares his strategy for reclaiming the palace. Every detail must be perfect. The element of surprise will be crucial. Telemachus listens intently, ready to stand by his father's side. With their plans set in motion, father and son prepare for the challenges ahead. The first steps of their strategy are simple but essential. Together, they are ready to reclaim what is rightfully theirs. Ithaca's fate is about to change. And that wraps up this chapter. Odysseus's secret return is not just a homecoming. It's the beginning of a carefully crafted plan for justice and redemption. Next, we'll witness how this plan unfolds as Odysseus confronts the suitors. Stay tuned. We're entering a new chapter in Odysseus's adventure, one of the most dramatic moments in the entire Odyssey. It's time for the contest of the bow, a high-stakes challenge that will determine the future of Ithaca. Will Odysseus reclaim his throne? Let's find out. To buy more time and test the suitors, Penelope announces a contest. Whoever can string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads will win her hand in marriage. None suspect that this challenge is nearly impossible. One by one, the suitors try, and fail to string the bow. Their confidence crumbles as they realize how heavy and unyielding it is. Frustration fills the air. Then, an unexpected challenger steps forward, the old beggar, Odysseus in disguise. The suitors scoff, but Penelope allows him to try. With effortless strength, Odysseus strings the bow. The hall falls silent as he draws the string back and releases the arrow. It flies perfectly through all 12 axe heads. The silence breaks as Odysseus reveals his true identity. The beggar is no beggar. He is the rightful king of Ithaca. The suitors' faces turn pale with fear. The game is over, and justice is at hand. And that's how Odysseus takes the first step toward reclaiming his throne. With his identity revealed and his strength undeniable, there's no turning back now. Stay tuned as the confrontation with the suitors reaches its dramatic climax. Now begins one of the bloodiest and most dramatic moments in our story, the final showdown. Odysseus and his son Telemachus stand ready to face the suitors. Justice and vengeance are about to unfold as the king takes back what is rightfully his. With his bow in hand, Odysseus takes the first shot. The arrow flies straight and true, striking one of the leading suitors. Panic spreads like wildfire as the suitors scramble for cover, but there is no escape. Telemachus quickly joins the fight. Father and son fight side by side, picking off the suitors one by one. It's a whirlwind of fury, skill, and determination. But Odysseus and Telemachus aren't alone. The goddess Athena appears, disguised as a mentor figure, lending them divine support. With her help, victory seems inevitable. The final suitors fall. The hall grows silent once again, but this time it's filled with the air of justice and triumph. Odysseus has reclaimed his home, and order is restored to Ithaca. With the suitors defeated, Odysseus has brought justice back to his kingdom. But the story isn't over yet. There are still final tests and reunions ahead. Stay with us as Odysseus's journey draws to its moving conclusion. And now, we enter a crucial chapter of the Odyssey. Odysseus's long-awaited reunion with Penelope. After everything he's been through, there's just one more test ahead, proving his identity to the woman who's waited for him all these years. This isn't going to be easy. Penelope is sharp, cautious, and determined not to be deceived. Penelope is no fool. She's heard claims before from men pretending to be her lost husband, but this time something feels different. Still, she needs proof. She devises a clever test. A test only the real Odysseus could pass. Her test? The secret of their marriage bed. She asks a servant to move it, a seemingly innocent request. But Odysseus knows the truth. That bed is immovable, carved directly from a living olive tree. No one but the real Odysseus could know this. Odysseus's answer is perfect. He describes the bed in detail, revealing the secret that no one else could know. Penelope's eyes fill with tears. Finally, after all these years, her husband has truly returned. With the truth revealed, the reunion is complete. After years of uncertainty and hardship, Penelope and Odysseus are together again. Domestic harmony is restored in Ithaca, and for the first time in decades, peace fills their home. This moment is the emotional heart of the Odyssey. It's not just about reclaiming a throne, it's about restoring love, trust, and family. But the story isn't quite over yet. Stay with us as we approach the final resolution of this epic journey. We now enter the final chapter of Odysseus's journey. After reuniting with Penelope, there's one more important figure Odysseus must seek out: his father Laertes. It's time for reconciliation and resolution. Odysseus approaches Laertes, but he doesn't reveal his identity immediately. Instead, he tests his father's spirit by speaking in disguise, gauging how much his absence has affected him. Moved by his father's sadness, Odysseus finally reveals himself. He proves his identity by recalling childhood memories, details only they would share. Father and son embrace, their long separation finally over. It's a moment of pure joy and deep relief. The weight of years of longing is lifted. But peace is short-lived. News of the suitors' deaths reaches their families, and a new conflict brews. Seeking revenge, they gather to confront Odysseus and his kin. Just as violence seems inevitable, divine intervention saves the day. Athena appears, commanding peace and ensuring no more blood is shed. With the gods' blessing, peace is restored in Ithaca. Odysseus and Laertes return home, ready to live out their days in tranquility and harmony. And with that, Odysseus's epic journey comes to a close. It's a story of survival, resilience, and the enduring power of home and family lessons that resonate even today. And now, we've reached the final chapter of our story, the Odyssey's legacy. While Odysseus's journey may have ended, the influence of this epic tale stretches across centuries, continuing to inspire and resonate today. At its core, the Odyssey is about themes that never go out of style: heroism, perseverance, and the longing for home. These timeless concepts have inspired countless works of literature, film, and even pop culture. Think about it. How many stories center around a hero struggling to return home? Whether it's a blockbuster film or a personal journey, echoes of Odysseus's trials are everywhere. Even today, the Odyssey speaks to us about resilience in the face of hardship and the importance of staying true to one's purpose. It's a story of survival, just as relevant now as it was in ancient times. And it's not just literature. The Odyssey has left its mark on art, theater, music, and more. Its characters and themes are woven into the very fabric of human creativity. If you've enjoyed this journey through the Odyssey, why not take a moment to support the channel? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more epic content. Trust me, we've got stories even the muse herself would envy. We'd love to hear from you. What part of Odysseus's journey resonated with you the most? Have you ever felt like you were on your own Odyssey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.